What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm joined today with Roger Jacobsen. How are you doing today, Roger?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And I got some great news for you today, Roger. My very favorite audience member is joining us today. And why is my favorite audience member here today? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate investors, syndicators, operators, you name it. And why would I do such a silly thing, you might ask? Well, if you know about private, off market, also known as 506B deals, you know that the SEC requires that you have a documented prior substantive relationship or else they get ants in their pants. So I have to talk to everybody, make sure I've got that documentation all buttoned up. And the most important thing for you, though, is you'll learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals, which is a pretty exciting thing if you ask me. But Roger, before I get too excited with your business, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself?
Sure. I'm Roger Jacobsen. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm actually in Pleasant Grove, which is a smaller sub-city. I've been in construction and real estate investing for about 27 years. I've done house flipping, developed different real estate, done a lot of finished carpentry, been covered in sawdust, and now I'm doing some more larger scale stuff.
All right, awesome. That's good. That's a great place to start. So, the first segment that we go through is always the five distinct motivations for doing a commercial real estate deal. But before we do that, I got to say, but wait, check your eight. Roger, I don't know if you can see through your camera and down at your 8 o'clock here, but there might be this hideous subscribe button that maybe the audience should. Oh, okay, yeah, it's a stupid joke, but I do it in every episode. So the five distinct motivations. Now, all of us, we have different reasons to be getting into commercial real estate, and every version is unique and specific to themselves. But I find they fit pretty neatly into these five different categories. And the reason why it's important to know this is because these deals are a lot of work. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It takes months even to do the acquisition. And so I need to make sure that people are actually going to follow through with what they say. So I like to know what their motivation is. The first of the five is preservation of purchasing power. What's that all about? Well, some people already have a portfolio of assets and they don't have a W 2. They use the profits from ownership to make their ends meet. And if you're in that situation, what would exactly make you want to do some new acquisition that takes a few months, has plenty of risks involved? Well, the answer is if inflation is eating away at the purchasing power of your cash flow, then that makes a lot more sense to make another acquisition. But the other opportunities come when there's signs of distress, there's an asset crash, something like that. And then that way you can buy at a steep discount. So that's some people, that's not where I am. Where I am right now is trading time directly for wealth. My background is in technology, specifically the CRM and online funnel industry. And so because of that, I'm a wage earner, high salary earner, and all that kind of stuff. And while I was working for years for an Ohio firm that was flipping 10 houses a month, what was crossing my mind is like, why am I paying more in tax than anybody else, including my boss who was doing much better than I was? So I was like, well, can't I be rewarded in the form of deployed capital, AKA equity? And that's why I made my pivot from that space into this. So that's what I'm up to. Whereas a lot of people, especially newbies, they want to get involved in commercial real estate because they hear they're great big transactions, they can get a little sliver of the action, and their motivation is to one day, maybe it's to retire early, but really what it boils down to is taking control of your schedule. Maybe that means working fewer months per year, maybe it's fewer weeks per month, but regardless, that's what these guys are mostly interested in, which is in stark contrast with these guys. These next ones, they're just plain ambitious. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want that legacy wealth to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's great because they're going to hustle into their 90s. So they're fantastic members of any team. Just like the last group, but their motivations are slightly different. They've found a sector of society, or maybe it's animals, or the environment, or they want to send people to space. Who knows what it is, but they figured out that to make a big impact, to make a big splash, there's a financial component to it. And that's why they're making these acquisitions. So, Roger, as far as those five different motivations go, what combination of those would you say describes you best?
Definitely buying my hometown
Mhm.
and being able to fast track my retirement.
All right, beautiful. I love it. I love it. That brings me to my next question, though, which is the tolerance for risk. And if you've ever been involved in a 506B deal, they should have had a securities attorney involved, and the securities attorney will insist that you fill out this big questionnaire about your finances, and they're pretty invasive questions. But when I went through these different questionnaires, there was one that really jumped out at me, which was, how much risk are you willing to accept? And I don't think that that's a very well formed question. So I made my own version for this interview as a fill in the blanks question because I think it's much more informative. It is. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What's too risky for you, Roger? It can be inside real estate or outside. It's up to you.
I would say that buying oceanfront property in Arizona is too risky for me. I will add to that that many years ago I was investing through a self-directed IRA, and the person that ran that was indicted. His name is Curtis DeYoung. I think he is still trying to get out on probation to this day. And he took about 20, I believe it was about $20 million worth of everybody's money, embezzled it, tried to make a quick buck in a mall in Arizona and didn't make it. So that would be too risky for me.
That makes sense, and I'm just going to throw it out there. It's probably not just oceanfront property in Arizona. It's probably any landlocked state. That's just my guess right there.
You're probably right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But let's get moving. Oh yeah, there's the subscribe sandwich that's being, this thing just kills me every single time. It's just like it's so far out there, but it makes for a great segue for me to pull out the Dan Does Deals Commercial Core Competency Cube. You can try and say that 10 times fast, but you can get your own free copy of the die on dandoesdeals.com. And like a complete dummy, I don't even ask for your email address. And if you know anything about marketing at all, you'll know that that's like the worst thing you can do is give away your freebie and not even ask for contact information. But the truth is, I want you to be able to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals and understand how these deals work. And the best way to do it is to print it out and practice. And in every episode of Chance Encounters, I take 2 minutes to go through the different sides so that you can get this all buttoned up. So let's get started. Repositioners, they are acquisitions people. So they're looking at a bunch of different properties. They're looking through all sorts of paperwork. And what are they doing with this paperwork, you may ask? But anyway, if you did ask, it's underwriting. That's the fancy word for what they're doing with the paperwork. They're doing the math. They're figuring out, is this property even actually making the amount of money that the broker slash seller is claiming it is? Because there's fun ways to play with the numbers and make it pretty opaque. So the repositioner has to figure out, first of all, is it making money? But they're not just a typical investor or acquisitions person, because they're also thinking, how can they change how the property is run so that there's more upside? And one of the most unusual or confusing parts of the repositioner's job is they have to do a lot of investor relations. In other words, talking to financiers, banks, basically people who deal with paper and money, but they aren't involved in any sort of operations at all. So the reason why the repositioners have to basically rub elbows with a bunch of financiers is because if you can secure a more advantageous loan, that goes straight to the profitability of the property. So that's why they're always looking for more financiers. But the more obvious spot of repositioner's job to find more value, to find more upside, is to take a look at the operations and stop those Benjamins from going down the toilets. But of course, there's a lot more to operations than just unclogging toilets and replacing faucets and mowing lawns and all that kind of fun stuff. Me personally, because of my tech background, especially in the CRMs, I can bring automation and then also the marketing and content creation part to any GP team, which that might not seem like a straight slam dunk, but even if you outsource to a third party, if you have a vacancy rate problem, the only way you're going to fix it is if you have people on your team who have good marketing chops. So that's what I'm up to as far as operations. But often that's not enough upside for the repositioner to really turn the property around. So they'll frequently get a contractor team involved to do a value add or some renovations. The idea being is if you have nicer units and you get a new tenant or a resident, they would be happy to pay more in rent than the previous one because the place is nicer. But that comes down to ROI. And the problem there is like you can dump endless amounts of money into a property and not make any actual increase in profit. Like if you're gold plating your toilets, it's not a great idea. But if you're like me, one of the ways that you'd want to keep tabs on these contractors and the operators and all that kind of stuff, and just to be clear, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm from the internet. So that means I need locals. I need boots on the ground. If I'm going to be doing any deals at all, I need to have somebody nearby who can be there in an hour or two, because you can be certain that's not going to be me. I'd be stuck at an airport in an hour or two. So the local part is not my piece of the puzzle. But once the repositioner has assembled this team and they've found an ideal property to take over, they're going to turn around to the financiers and say, hey, I got this awesome property. It's 350 units and it's tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, there's one part of the puzzle here that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's super duper important. And a lot of gurus and coaching programs really gloss over this next one. And it is, who is the sponsor, or KP? What's that all about? Here's a little hypothetical. Let's say you're a physician or an attorney or an engineer or something like that. And you and your friends decide, hey, let's take over a local commercial real estate property. Well, the little flaw in your plan is that if you want to take over a 350 unit apartment complex, you're not going to be eligible for a commercial loan unless somebody in the fold already owns a similar asset. The bank will just plain say no. So on top of that, though, you also have to have a certain amount of liquidity. And then among the ownership team, you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all of those pieces, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Roger, you already gave some background as far as your construction contractor background, but as far as your next deal goes, which sides of the die do you figure you and your organization are going to cover?
Definitely on the contractor side. And so that's the play that I do a lot. We will be doing more value add as they come up and become available due to interest rates. And then we're also doing ground up development on tropical islands, specifically Roatan Island right now.
Excellent, excellent. So then my next question then has to do with the buy box. And when investors or syndicators, people in this industry are talking to each other and saying, hey, what you looking for? What's your ideal property? There's really three things that we actually mean. The first one's geography. Where is it? Which state, which county, possibly even which neighborhood or street. Okay, so if you're going to use that label of ideal, those are definitely going to matter. The second one is going to be size. Now, when it comes to this show here, generally my guests are in multifamily, in other words, apartment complexes. And then the way that you rate the size of an apartment complex is usually by the number of units in the complex. And that's important because you're going to have a completely different team of people to take over 5 unit apartment complexes compared to the 350 unit apartment complexes. So that size definitely matters. But the third one is class. And I got to admit, one of my pet peeves is when people use one word for more than one different meaning. So I separate class into 2 parts. The first one I call condition. That has to do with how old is the building? How beat up is the building? Is it more or less up to date? Is it no frills, or is it just full of luxuries and amenities? That's the condition. Now, the area, on the other hand, that has to do with things like the crime rate where the property is located, or the school districts where the property is located. But really, when you say location, 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 it means how many people are going by that property on any given day. And both of those definitions of class, the area and the condition, are ranked the same way as in grade school, where you got A plus at the top, and then A minus, and then B plus. So as far as you and your organization goes, Roger, what's easier to say yes to? What's more difficult to say no to?
Are you asking me my buy box?
Sorry. So you were saying, so the 3 different categories. So you're saying, so nearby, like where you are, right?
I
In
would
Salt
I
Lake?
would I would say I would like to have a 150 unit Class C apartment building in Oklahoma City. That would be my ideal thing. And then in the other side of the spectrum, I'd like a 4 acre island off the coast of Bolivia. Bolivia? Excuse me. Uh,
I thought
Honduras.
Honduras. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, I thought Bolivia was more inland. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah.
I just got up from a nap. I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And then, so as far as classes go, like you like heavy value adds because of your contractor side, or turnkey. Like, where are you looking as far as that goes?
Um, a minimal, something not too heavy. I
Mhm.
don't want to gut anything. I'd say carpet and paint and maybe something else that justified a lower price to an investor, like a bad roof or some other type of problem.
Okay, great. So then that brings me to the next question, which there's a little sidebar about it, which is commercial real estate is an amazing industry to be in because we have to build teams, and nobody is going to be all the sides of the die for any meaningful amount of time. But because of our unique skill sets, even though we're eager to build more teams and give referrals and all that sort of stuff, we're better suited to help some people more than others. Me personally, because I automate and I have the marketing chops and all that kind of thing, that's why the sponsors and KPs, I'm always eager to speak to them because they have the foundations where a guy like me can make a disproportionate difference. And then also because I'm from the internet, that means I depend on my local boots on the ground. So those are the people who I'm most eager to speak to. But Roger, as far as you're concerned, I don't know if you have any 506B deals. Don't mention any 506B deals if you have them, or else all sorts of problems will happen. But as far as who on the die you're eager to speak to, who you can help more than others, the sky's the limit. So who should reach out to talk to you?
Definitely financiers. That
Hmm.
would be something that would help me the most as well.
All right, yeah, that makes lots of sense. And then the next question then has to do with how to reach out. I'm lucky because I've got a super duper distinct last name. It makes me really easy to find, especially on LinkedIn, which is the social media channel that I spend the most time on. But if you scan this code right here with your phone, this QR code, that brings you to the FAQs page of 506 BME, which is the platform where I offer that service of documenting your substantive relations with your investors. So if you're going to be doing syndication and whatnot, you need to be prepared for the SEC to audit you, because once you get to a certain number of assets under management, that's going to happen no matter what. But Roger, as far as people reaching out to you, what are the best ways to make that happen?
You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, Roger Jacobsen.
Great, and that's in Utah, Salt Lake area, because I imagine there's a few Jacobsons.
There's a
Uh,
few,
yeah, a few. Excellent,
but
excellent.
I have the biggest following,
hmm
so I'm top in the search bar usually.
Excellent, excellent. That's good stuff.
I'm
So
not
that
that cocky.
That's funny. That's funny. So that brings me to the last thing then, which is actually not for you, Roger. It's for you in the audience. It's my public service announcement. If you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms, I'm confident it's because of the hideous subscribe button that's just down there, and it's free to hit it, but I'll tell you why I'm drawing even more attention to it. If enough people hit that subscribe button, then YouTube will start to pay for these videos instead of me. And I think that would be amazing. And as far as the trade off to you, you should realize it means that my videos may show up in your list of suggestions. But honestly, you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions. It's perfectly fine. Frankly, I really appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Roger, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Sweet. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay. Are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.